And joining me for all the chat is commentator Sam Armstrong. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
There are so many calls I want to get to in this half hour about defence, because we are asking, basically, are you concerned about Britain's ability to defend itself? You can give us a call on 0344 499 1000, text the word talk and your message to 87222. You can also send us a message on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1, standard network rate message. Sam Armstrong, I'll put that question to you. Are you concerned about Britain's ability to defend ourselves?
No, I'm not actually. What I am concerned about, however, is our willingness to defend ourselves, because we know that this country is still the same country that did all of those things in the last century, that reclaimed the Falkland Islands, that fought the Second World War and did everything else. When we are spending lots and lots of money on a more advanced military than we've ever had before.
We couldn't defend the Falklands now. We've had military leaders telling us that. We're going to talk to the former head of the British Army, Lord Dannatt, in the next time.
Well, what I don't doubt is that the British Army, the British Air Force and the British Navy are absolutely ready and willing to do it, and I do believe actually they do have the capacity to do so, given Argentina's actually pretty parlous military. But time and time again, what I see going wrong with this country is not the lions at the front line. It's not even the equipment that those lions are sent out to fight with. It is the mice behind them. It is the cowards that we have in political leadership that refuse to use them to do what they are sent there to do in the first place. And look, you only have to look at what is going on in the Channel right now. We have Coast Guard planes that can track every single one of these vessels.
We've got drones.
We've got a Navy. We've got a Coast Guard, all of which are equipped to do exactly what needs to be done, which is to intercept and return every one of these boats. It's a perfectly legitimate way of ending this problem tomorrow. We are not prepared to do so. Why? Because we have placed international treaties, international laws ahead of common sense.
Yeah.
And the common sense says, actually, do you know what? It's not in anyone's interest for this to carry on because people keep drowning in the Channel. The safest thing to do is, yes, it might be dangerous in the short term.
I'm more concerned about having to pay 50 grand to keep these people and having people who are undocumented. If people want to get on these rickety boats, genuinely, they want to pay for the privilege of getting on these rickety boats, I've got to be honest with you, I've not got much sympathy if they drown in the Channel. I've got sympathy for the children and any people who've been coerced onto the boats. But I'm sorry, otherwise, you pay your money, you take your choice.
But even on the terms of these human rights leaders, right, these human rights lawyers that we see, leaders, they're not leaders, these lawyers that we see, they say in order to keep people safe, the British public has got the British state rather has got an obligation to keep people at sea safe. The trade that they have enabled is deeply dangerous. It is leading to people die. It's going to continue to do so. It's awful. It's heinous. And yet we are told that there is absolutely nothing we can do. That is nonsense. If we were to put any of our callers that call in every day on this channel, if we were to make Julia Hartley-Brewer Empress of the Channel, and give you the authority to end it tomorrow, you would do so. It is purely and utterly a matter of willingness, a matter of, are you prepared to be unacceptable, unpopular, a little bit iffy at a dinner party? If you're prepared to do that, you can end it. So to go back to your question, am I concerned about our ability to defend ourselves? No. But boy, am I prepared about our politicians' willingness to do so.
And that's the thing. And that is absolutely the crucial thing, isn't it? Well, let's tell you a few things that Keir Starmer said in his announcement this morning. It's going to be the actual review itself, and it's all been dribbled out already over the weekend, but the review itself is going to be published this afternoon when Lord John Healey, the Defence Secretary, reads a statement to the House of Commons. But the UK's defence policy, Keir Starmer said this morning, will always be NATO first. He said the strategic defence review will make Britain a battle-ready, armour-clad nation. He said we are moving to war-fighting readiness as the central purpose of our armed forces. He said he's 100% confident spending plans set out in the review will be delivered. He did refuse to rule out a further raid on the foreign aid budget. They've already raided it already to pay for his, quote, his ambition, he used that word again, ambition of increasing defence spending to 3% of GDP. He said at one point, drones, destroyers, AI, aircraft, each different branch of our armed services will be fully integrated to create an army which is 10 times more lethal by 2035. And he said a defence dividend that will be felt in the pockets of working people and the prosperity of the country, securing growth for generations to come, is what he was going to deliver. That's about spending the money back here in the UK and investing in jobs and factories here. All in favour of all of this. We're going to be battle ready by 2035. The reality is, though, the threat to Ukraine is right now. The threat to the Baltic states is in a couple of years' time, to Poland, to the Nordic states as well. We've seen Russia amassing troops. Why? Here's the thing. Why Vladimir Putin would think that he could get away with any of these things, you've got to wonder. But he kind of did get away with Ukraine. You've got an American president basically saying, I'll walk away from this. This is Biden's war. It's not my problem. May not give any more aid. We'll see how he actually finally wakes up. He seems to be waking up to the fact that Putin's got him around his little finger and is making him, frankly, look like a schmuck. Yep. Is what Putin is making Trump look like. But the possibility that the biggest military power in the world could walk away from Ukraine, and the negotiations, there seems to be just a blanket view that, well, as long as you can provide a security guarantee for the 80% of Ukraine that remains in Ukrainian control, that you give away Crimea and the Donbass. Well, I'd call that a victory for Vladimir Putin. That red line that Obama drew in Syria way back when, remember, was it 2015? Red line, if you cross it with a chemical attack, well, Assad did. Nothing happened. At the end of the day, you think, why would Putin do anything so stupid as to invade the Baltic states or anything like that? But why would he invade Ukraine? Oh, because he didn't think there would be any response from the West. Why not? Because we are not battle ready. We are not battle willing. Was it only 40% of Brits and Americans said they'd be willing to fight for their own country? Not even for another country, for their own country. The West is weak, not just militarily, morally, and in terms of just willingness, in terms of courage, just willing to stand up for what our countries represent, which is freedom and democracy and the rule of law.
Yeah, and look, it goes further back than that. I mean, Putin first invaded Ukraine because he got away with invading Georgia back in 2008. Yep. Then he started invading Ukraine with the Little Green Men. Then he invaded Crimea in 2014, and he got away with it right the way back then. And what does he do? He keeps striking and striking and striking. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you who isn't weak. Let me tell you who hasn't been cowardly. The Ukrainian people.
Oh my gosh.
It used to be said that Russia was the second most powerful military on earth. At times it has only been the second most powerful military in Ukraine. Why? Because when the rubber hit the road, the people of Ukraine stood firm, they held their ground. When American leaders were telling President Zelensky to get out of there on a helicopter, he was saying, I don't want to rise, I want to fight these people. He did, he stood firm, and he defended his country. And that is ample evidence, right?
Yeah.
Ample evidence, all the evidence you can need, that even though we are not that power that we once were, even though that we are fallen in so many different ways, if this country believes in itself, if those and our allies share that moral belief, as you put it, that philosophical force once more, if we're prepared to invest, yes, but stand firm, to show some backbone, to recognise that we are the shining light, the beacon on a city hill, if we are prepared to do that, then China, Russia, Iran, I don't care who, will never stand a chance.
No, exactly.
This country, the West, all of us need to do nothing more than to believe in ourselves once again.
Yeah, and again, so much of that undermining is happening via, actually, the bots, the infiltration of our sort of political and business and every world, the whole social media, everything. This infiltration of these people who just sort of want to undermine us. This is the fifth column, and it really is. This is not a conspiracy, guys. This is totally true.
And Julia, just to be clear, that you'll see plenty in the media class that are saying, "Oh, that Russians are spreading far right ideas," and they are, because it undermines us. Do you know who else they're putting money behind?
Yep.
Net zero activists.
Oh yes.
Far left radical race baiting activists. They are pouring money into anybody that makes us question ourselves, that divides this country, that undermines it, and that starts really in the biggest way with net zero. Why? Because it has made us incredibly dependent on these countries for gas, and because it has destroyed our capacity to manufacture.
It happens in our media, it happens in the schools. It's happening not just over those feelings, but also again countries we can learn from: Ukraine, Israel. Extraordinary willingness to stand up and unite against an evil force of the terrorists in Hamas. What do you make of these claims and counterclaims, these denials that again reported as fact by the BBC, Sky, and everyone else, CNN, everyone, that IDF forces fired on Palestinians, killing dozens, injuring well over 100, including women and children who were just getting food aid near Rafah in Gaza. This is from this new humanitarian food hub set up by Israel, keeping the UN out. a lot of the claims, I mean, the doctors saying they're taking gunshot wounds. The initial claims were there was some sort of not missile attack or some attack that wouldn't involve guns. We've got footage that's been put out by the aid organisation of a 15-minute period round when we're told gunfire was opened on these people at this time. Well, there's 15 minutes showing no gunfire, no issue there at all. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there, but I find it extraordinary. We've seen backtracking by the BBC and others. Again, most trusted news source in the world, we're told. But just like, we've got the people telling us this. We've got the doctors telling us this. We've got the aid agencies telling us it must all be true. None of those people are able to speak unless Hamas has said it's okay. What I can't work out, and it's a question I put out on social media, and it's a question I put to the Defence Minister, Alistair Cairns, a few moments ago, is what would be the motivation for IDF forces to open fire on civilians at a humanitarian food aid supply depot?
Yeah, well, look, let's be clear.
Why?
It would be grossly against their interests. Here's what I would say. It's a war zone. There's going to be threats all the time.
Yeah.
There might well be gunfire. And when there is gunfire, word will spread quickly. And, everybody knows that a lie will travel around the world twice before the truth has got a chance to get its trousers on. Having said all of that, as you rightly point out, you cannot report in Gaza unless Hamas, a literal terrorist organisation, says you can. So I would be viewing every single piece of information that comes out of that place with deep cynicism, and the BBC doesn't.
Yeah. And we know that Hamas have lied repeatedly. I mean, so many times they've stated things as fact, reported as fact, and then are completely debunked, but no one reads the debunking.
Well, Julia, I take a broad view, which is if you're prepared to chop babies' heads off, you're probably prepared to tell a few lies to the BBC. These people are animals. They are evil. They are prepared to stop at nothing, nothing, in order to get their way. And what do they want to achieve? The total and utter destruction of Israel and the Jewish people.
But it was very interesting. Jeremy Bowen on Radio 4, who's just completely busted flush. Someone I used to really admire, but I'm absolutely shocking, a lot of his reporting in recent months. But he was saying, look, as you know, we're not allowed to have reporters inside Gaza. IDF, the Israeli forces don't allow us. I can only think it's because they don't. The only explanation for that, he said, is because they don't want us to know what's going on there. Or the other explanation might be that you're going to be taken hostage, and then they've got more hostages to deal with, and you're only going to be able to get access to anything that is propaganda, and then you'll be spewing out more propaganda. Because, funnily enough, as a general rule, we don't allow journalists to enter, war zones that we control. I mean, we don't. Funnily enough. I mean, when we were, we had borders, they were embedded, with the forces in Iraq and Afghanistan. They weren't allowed to just wander freely where they felt like it, because they would be at risk.
And by the way, just a reminder for those that are catching up or a little bit slow, Gaza has two borders. It shares two borders. It has one with Israel, about whom we hear so very much. It has one with Egypt, about whom we hear absolutely
nothing. It's funny
nothing.
how I don't know why the Egyptians don't open it, let all the people out of Gaza, or let all the aid in. I don't know, but the aid is going in. What I find fascinating, I mean, the only people, of course, who don't want this aid to happen, we know that Hamas, we know this has been verified, Hamas telling people don't take the aid. These people apparently are starving. I think it was the newspaper had a picture on the front page of a woman with her kids, looking, obviously everyone's very upset, and these women, starving people of Gaza. I mean, the woman ain't missed a square meal in a number of years. I'm just saying. It's like all those women when you see when they're going to the BBC finds someone, a single mum, who has to miss meals because she has to go to a food bank to feed her kids, and she's got arms like thighs. I mean, like, really? I think missing a few meals won't be a bad thing for you. I'm not saying that things aren't awful for the people of Gaza right now, but they're largely awful because of Hamas are in charge and not because of the IDF. It's as simple as that. And have you tried giving the hostages back and stopping bombing and trying to kill everyone in Israel? That might help your situation.
But Hamas don't care how many people die. They don't.
They actively want children in Gaza to die. They have stated this publicly. They are martyrs for the cause, and they get the media propaganda. But we have again, BBC interviews, reporters, war reporters who know about wars. They've been on the ground talking about what is happening in Gaza as the most awful, unprecedented war zone ever. This is simply not true.
Well, and do you know what more? It is utterly and completely, and I'll say it again, totally racist, right? There are wars going on today in which the situations are far worse. If you go to Sudan, if you saw what happened in Darfur, nobody who ever saw that could say with a straight face that what is occurring is on any scale equivalent. Yep. But we have and we hold a totally different standard for Israel. Why? Just tell me why. If someone can give me an answer why, I will stop going on about it. They can't, they won't. It's the question to which there is given.
And again, we've had that horrific terror attack in Colorado by a man, apparently a legal migrant, shouting "Free Palestine," and it was a rally. And again, it's described as a pro-Israel rally. No, it was a rally for the hostages. Surely we're all pro-freeing hostages, right? Oh, no, sorry, not the Israeli ones. Just find it, before we go to a break, I want to talk about Lord Hermer. He's the Attorney General in the news, I think every single time for the wrong reasons. He's in favour of the Chagos surrender. He's representing Caribbean countries wanting reparations. There is no issue that he has not been on the wrong side of human rights law. A big old mate of Keir Starmer, appointed to the job by his mate. Last week he did a speech at RUSI, the Royal United Services Institute, where he sort of laughingly likened, he didn't use the word Nazi, but he likened Tory and Reform politicians who have talked about leaving the European Convention on Human Rights to the Nazis. Well, this is what the lawyers in 1930s Germany wanted to do as well. I mean, absolute nonsense. He has apologised, still calls for him to resign. And now we know that he's also the man who authorised Lucy Connolly's prosecution for writing a tweet. At the same time, though, he declined to review unduly lenient sentences for a rapist and a paedophile. I mean, this man is on the wrong side of every item in history, isn't he?
Yeah, he's never found an enemy of this country that he doesn't quite really rather like, if I'm honest. But going back to the ECHR point, he says, oh no, we mustn't leave the ECHR, we must reform it. Well, over the weekend it was reported that 8 countries in Europe have made an official application to...
Nazis, the lot of them.
To review and to reform the ECHR. Now, Lord Hermer, Keir Starmer's hand-picked Attorney General, says we should be reforming the ECHR because then we can do it. And that's how you deal with it. Yeah. He says we accept there are problems, but we reform it. Are we one of the 8 countries to have asked? Have we tried?
Of course we're not.
No. And I'll tell you for why. It's because the likes of Keir Starmer, the likes of Lord Hermer, like the outcomes we get in which prisoners can vote and we can't deport anyone, and how many other horrendous circumstances have we seen because of our human rights laws. Jerry Adams, one of Lord Hermer's old clients, getting compensation from the British government. They like it, and they like having something to blame in the ECHR, and they are never, ever, ever going to change a thing because they like not just the process, but the outcomes.
But it also, it was like the people who say we need to reform, and David Cameron, we need to reform the EU. Oh, good luck with that. How did that work out? And they didn't. They should have given him some sop, and then we wouldn't have had the Brexit vote realistically. But that was another foolish mistake on behalf of the EU. Can I just bring you also just quickly back to the conversation we had with a resident doctor? We used to call them junior doctors, Basha Mukherjee. BMA basically saying doctors are worse off than they were 10 years ago. That's why we need these big pay rises. They're asking for 29%. The strike ballot is ongoing right now. But actually, the Nuffield Trust healthcare think tank has basically said, no, actually, you're using it. There are different ways of measuring inflation, and actually doctors are better off. I'm very much of the view that we need to pay doctors enough to keep recruit and retain them. We need to train more doctors, stop importing them from abroad. We've got plenty of young, bright people who've got the grades at A level who want to be doctors, who we're literally not allowing to train to be doctors. Mad, it's insane. And again, it's a fault. Oh, it costs 250 grand to train a doctor. It's a false economy not to train our own people up who will stay here. She was just saying, though, that, basically it's not just about money, it's about people being valued, and the fact that staff are so overrun and people can't get GP appointments. Do you think that the doctors are right to go on or to ballot for strike action?
Well, they have got literally everything they have asked for, and these have been ridiculous requests, and we now see that, and I really resent this actually, the public are with you, BMA. The public support you. The public
Less
are prepared.
Than half the people, though, now
are prepared to back you enormously. There is enormous sympathy in this country for doctors. Why do you need to lie? Why do you need to over-egg the pudding? Why do you need to just push it that much too far.
Okay.
Look, I get that it's tough. I get that things have been overall slightly worse since 2008. But by the way, this country has got an awful lot poorer. And why are doctors moving overseas? Well, they're moving overseas to countries like Australia, to Canada, to the US. Why? Because overall, those countries are much wealthier than us.
Because their quality of life,
their politicians have pursued policies that have grown the economy. We are now poorest than the poorest state in the US, and we have got that way. And of course, we're going to get poorer.
But by the way, they want to defend the NHS, but then they go and move abroad to countries which have a completely different, they have an insurance-based system which works much better. But apparently, it wouldn't work here. I've never really understood why that is the case. But there we are. 11:25 is the time. I'd love to hear from you on that.